Ladies and mostly gentlemen, today we are going to talk about Legion. More importantly, the upcoming Legion content patch 7.2. And if you're anyone who plays retail or has watched any of Belluar's videos in the last month, you've probably heard everything you need to know about this patch. But as a short summary, this is what it's going to include. You have the Broken Shore Zone, Sargeras Raid, the Cathedral of the Eternal Light dungeon, the new Order Hall and Artifact quests, and flying in the Broken Isles and class-specific flying mounts. So what I'm going to focus on today is the class-specific mounts. Now, as a huge fan of mounts in general, I almost filled my pants with piss when they announced this at BlizzCon, only to be very disappointed when the mount for warriors wasn't the best, but at least it wasn't as bad as the mages. So now on to the point of the video. So I heard the PTR had gone live with 7.2. So I rushed around asking all my server developer friends to rip the mounts out of the PTR and port them over to Wrath, purely for me to see them up close and play around with them, but they were all too busy to do such a task, so I took it upon myself to host my own little personal server and port them over myself, and this is how they came out. So without further ado, this is 7.2 class mounts in the Wrath of the Lich King client. So first up is the Death Knight's mount. Now the reward from the class quest is called Decaying Reigns of the Vile Brood Vanquisher, and the mount is called the Death Lord's Vile Brood Vanquisher, and has 3 variants: Blood in red, Frost in blue, and Unholy in green. Now this mount is exactly what you'd expect from a Death Knight. The best part for me is that your saddle is literally made of a pile of skulls with blades sticking out of it. Now it's not as flashy as the others, nor does it have to be. The different variants are perfect for each spec of the Death Knight, and it's definitely a step up from the Skeletal Griffin. The port over of this mount was great as well, which goes to show, if Blizzard really put their mind to it when Wrath was released, they could have given this mount to Death Knight from the start. So for hunters, the quest reward is called Trust of the Loyal Wolfhawk, and the mount is called Huntmaster's Loyal Wolfhawk. Now there are 2 other variants of this mount, sold by Pan the Kind Hand in the Hunter's Order Hall, and these are Trust of the Fierce Wolfhawk, which is in green, and Trust of the Dire Wolfhawk, which is in grey. So this mount is described as a Wolfhawk, and it's definitely a fan favourite, and I'll probably say that it's my second favourite out of all the mounts. The port from Legion to Wrath was actually one of the best. All the animations seem to be working, and it just looks so damn good. Running and taking off is definitely one of the more satisfying things to do on this mount, which is probably why they use that clip in the trailer at BlizzCon. So now for monks. Their mount is called Ban Lu, Grandmaster's Companion, and this mount is just straight up badass. WoW has a history of making fantastic tiger mounts, starting back in vanilla with the Zulian Tiger, and then those awesome mounts from Missa Pandaria. And now in Legion, they have this monk-themed tiger, and this mount is very monk-like. It has a light blue glow, complete with a keg of beer on the back that just screams Pandarian. But obviously, all other monks from all other races are also able to use this mount. The port over to Wrath was also amazing. I honestly couldn't find a single flaw between this and the Legion version. For the warrior, the item they receive on their class quest is called Iron Reigns of the Bloodthirsty Warroom, and the mount is called Battle Lord's Bloodthirsty Warroom. Now this mount has 3 variants depending on your spec. So you have the red skinned for arms, the black skinned for fury, and the purple skinned for protection. The mount itself is not massively unique in its look compared to the hunter or monk, but it's not a bad mount overall. I believe this mount takes a lot of its inspiration from the Proto-Drake mounts from way back in Wrath. So porting over this mount, I had a bit of an issue. Long story short, Wrath models can support up to 2 skin color options, and 9 times out of 10 that would be body skin and armor skin. But since Kata, they've increased this up from 2, so that means we are left with this mess. Now the first 2 skin options were for the body and armor, so unfortunately we're left with green wings. But nonetheless, the mount is pretty awesome when in flight, apart from the green wings obviously. Now the reason I said the hunter mount wasn't my favourite is because of this, and this is the shaman mount. The item you receive is called Raging Tempest Totem, and the mount is called Farseer's Raging Tempest, and it has 3 variants depending on your spec. So you have the watery one if you're an elemental shaman, you'll have the fire one if you're an enhancement, and you'll end up with the air version if you spec restoration. Now this mount screams shaman. It's a unique model and the variants are perfect for each spec. The fact that you pretty much surf this mount is also a really cool extra. So porting this over to Wrath proved difficult, but in the end I managed to successfully port it over, including the surfing gnome. My only complaint, be it small, is that when you first take flight, it kinda looks like it's a giant sperm. But other than that, this thing is amazing and I'm seriously considering rolling Shaman in retail just to get my hands on this beautiful mount. So for Priest, the item you receive is called Gift of the Holy Keeper, and the mount is called High Priest Lightsworn Seeker, and this mount changes depending on your spec. So you have gold for Holy, purple for Shadow, and blue for Discipline. So this mount looked great in the trailer, and a lot of people loved it. Personally, I thought it looked a bit silly, and quite a bit like the new Druid form. And so it kind of ends up looking like you're a priest riding on a holy looking druid in shapeshifter form. So how did it port over to Wrath, you ask?
Glorious! No, I won't give in till I'm victorious. And I will defend.
So I think I know the reason this fucked up. Now as you can see, this mount has no skin for it. Now this lies with Blizzard fucking it up themselves. Let me explain. When you download the model from Legion, it has a main model file and a separate skin file. Most mounts, for example, the Shaman mount will have shamanmount.m2, which is the model file, and then the skin file will be shamanmount_elemental.blp. Now if we look at what came out of the Priest folder, we have priestmount.m2, which is the model, but as the skin file, you have Kloss Challenge Mage and Axe 2-Hand Ogma Raid, which are obviously models for gear. So that's how we ended up with this green mess. And the flying animations are screwed as well. It doesn't even seem to have wings, it just kind of flies in the air like an otter swimming through water. So poor old mages. They're stuck with Archmage's Prismatic Disc, which is pretty much a reskin version of the flying disc from Missa Pandaria. In the trailer for the mounts, they only show the arcane version, but this mount does change with the model depending on your spec. You have the arcane version, the fire version, and the frost version, all with their own unique twist on the design. So looking at this mount through the raft line, you can see it ported over perfectly, and on closer inspection, it's not as bad as you think. It's extremely high res and has some cool little additions for each spec, but I still have a feeling that we won't be seeing a ton of mages riding on this. So this is the Demon Hunter mount, and it's called Slayer's Fellbroken Shrieker, and I believe it's a variant on the Fellbat that you see in the Demon Hunter starting zone and various other places in Legion. Now Blizzard have done a great job on making this mount look as demon huntery as possible, complete with purple skin and tattoos. On Wrath, this mount ported over with no major model issues, and it was a lot bigger than I was expecting. The only trouble I've run into is the flying animation. Now according to Model Viewer, the flying animation is fully implemented and should work, but when I take flight in game, it seems like it's just doing an invisible vertical climbing wall or something. So for Warlocks, this mount is pretty much a cross between the new model for Midnight and the original Warlock Dreadsteed. Now according to the mount journal on the PTR, this Dreadsteed comes in 3 forms. The first is from the Warlock quest, and that is the green one, which is the Chaotic Dreadsteed. Then you have the Brimstone Dreadsteed, which is from a vendor in the Warlock Order Hall. And finally, you have the purple one, which is the Accursed Dreadsteed, which is apparently from a boss called Lord Hel Narath. And at this point, I'm not really sure if other players will be able to obtain the purple variant, but I guess time will tell. So over on the Raft line, the green Warlock mount ported over great. One thing I'm curious is how this mount will fly. Now currently the flight animation is a rehash of the swimming animation, and it'd be pretty epic if they could get it to maybe sprout some temporary wings every now and then, similar to how the tier 6 and tier 20 sets. The Brimstone version ported over great, but unfortunately the Accursed version didn't, which is a shame because I would say it's probably the best out of the 3. So the Paladin mount is pretty much an upgraded high-res version of the original Charger mount. The main mount item you obtain through the quest is called Glowing Range of the Golden Charger, and the mount is called High Lord's Golden Charger. Now similar to the Hunter and Warlock mounts, the other variants of this mount can be bought in a vendor inside the class order hall. Porting this model over to Wrath seemed to be a great success. I love the little details on this mount. As you can see at the back, it has a very paladin looking mace along with a tome of some kind. Personally, I'd say the Vengeful Charger is the best model. It's dark and mysterious, and the combination of grey and red look great together. Also, the mount journal entry is hilarious. But if you want the traditional Paladin Golden Charger, this will look great with your shiny new tier 20 set, which is extremely similar to the current tier 6 set. So the Rogue's main quest reward is called Razor-Lined Reins of Dark Portent, and this mount is called Shadowblade's Murderous Omen. Now this mount has 3 other variants which can be brought from a vendor called Zan Shiv Sprocket, which is the greatest gnome rogue name I've ever heard. The other versions are Midnight Reigns of Dark Portent, which has a different colour hood to the original. The next is Bloody Reigns of Dark Portent, which is maroon shaded feathers, and finally Mephitic Reigns of Dark Portent, which has dark green feathers. Now this crow mount is pretty awesome. It's also perfect for rogues, but what I noticed as well that it's heavily inspired by a mount from Warlords of Draenor called the Solar Spirehawk, and the port of this mount to Wrath was a very strange one. The model works fine, but it seems the model is a tad small. Now I have no idea if this is intentional or a bug. Either way, it's pretty damn adorable. Now finally for druids. This mount is a bit confusing, and I'm unsure if it will be a normal mount which you transform into, similar to the Nightwing Refer a Friend mount, or it'll be an additional form similar to Flight Form. Nonetheless, this mount is quite nice. The quest rewards Moon Kiss Feather, and the mount is called Archdruid's Lunar Wing form, and it's sort of similar to the Priest mount in the face. Now I ported this bad boy over to Wrath with no issues, and I also had a couple of other variants in colour as well, but as I would imagine, these are depending on the druid's spec. But like most of this video, it's pretty much speculation at this point. Well that's it guys, 12 class mounts which are coming to World of Warcraft Legion in patch 7.2. Or any custom 255 realm that wants to buy the patch off me for $1 million and sell them in game for $10 a piece. I'm joking. Obviously, I did this experiment purely for my own amusement and curiosity and wanting to play around with these awesome mounts. So I hope you liked the video, give it a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know in the comment section what mount is your favourite. Before I go guys, I'd like to say a huge shout out to my amazing patrons that donate their hard earned wonga to me. And also, if you haven't heard, I recently became a Discord partner. So come along to my Discord if you haven't already, it's great fun. Link is in the description, and with that guys, I'll see you next time.